All right. Oops, that is not what that's meant to go to. Okay. So today's video, we're going to be playing versus bots. I tried to record this, but then I lost a game in very embarrassing fashion that I don't want to admit to. But what we're going to be doing is going through the bots and kind of just going on general principles. We're going to be doing as little calculation as possible. Our calculation is going to be limited to like one turn away can they combo us, and we're just going to be trying to play in critical squares. Critical squares meaning in this structure, this is the square most likely to be good. Is this a move that looks promising here? Sure, then we'll play it. If we don't have a move that looks promising there, we will move on to another square, and if we have something that looks promising there, we're just going to play it. So we have a four corner hand where all the cards are pretty good, and it also gives us directional balance, but weirdly, none of them are safe. Because they have sevens in three directions, we have no safe corners with our 6/6 corners. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chuck the card that isn't a corner in five and just keep balance in the hand. What we're normally going to try to do with our starters is just try to make sure every card in our hand is relatively happy. So we'll play weak corners if a weak corner should lead us towards good things. We'll play a strong corner if it happens to be safe. All right, they captured us. Again, we have no immediate safety. So what I'm going to try to do here is we don't have a way to lock anything in. I don't want to use any card that has a unique capture. So I notice 5, 2, 3, 6 is my only card that can capture in 6 or 9. So I will not use that card here. I have multiple cards that can capture in every other square. So I'm going to leave those cards. What I think I'm going to do is just play the weakest corner I can, just making sure there's stuff I can take. Often a decent first corner strategy. But if I don't have a critical square to play in, and the standard squares to play in are 1, 2, or 3, I'm usually just going to play something weak and let the game continue. See what comes. All right. They blocked 6, and they blocked 6 in a really annoying way because we cannot take that from 9. Now, the key squares here are 2 and 9 for very obvious reasons. They're the moves that lock in the most cards. If we go in 9, we will lock in 9. If we go in 2, we will lock in 3, but we can also combo through 5 to flip 6. Again, we're only looking like one turn ahead. We're saying, if we do this move, what would they reply? They could go in 9, locking in 6. So if we go in 2, we lock in 3. If we go in 9, we lock in 9. Your mileage may vary on which you prefer. I think it's kind of helpful for us to flip 5 because 5 is going to be safe, but actually both paths flip 5. Actually, I'm an idiot. Completely missed. If we go in 9, we combo 8, which then flips 5, which flips 6, which flips 3. So then we just have to check, can they combo back? Do they have a combo back in 7? No. Do they have a combo back in 4? No. Do they have a combo back in 2? No. So we're going to take the combo. This was more calculation than I expected to be doing, and we're going to try to keep it minimal. But Bot Club Jack likes to create these long combo chains, and so sometimes this will happen. So, okay. We ended up having the combo. But the way we're thinking of, okay, 2 and 9 are the squares that can lock in, those are the only squares we're going to seriously consider. We're going to be constant on that theme. Now, what squares can lock something in? Either 2 or 4. 2 locks in 3, 4 locks in 7. We can't go in 4 taking 7, so I'd like to go in 2 locking in 3. I'd like to do so safely. I only have one choice for that. I check to make sure they don't have a combo in 4, because if they did, they could combo everything back. They do not have that combo. We're going to go in 2. We're up 6-4, and 3-6, 6-1 will finish this game off. So we're going to start with a win. Again, we're going to pretend this is the first game I played, even though I did attempt to record another video, and it went, as I said, embarrassingly badly. Hopefully it hasn't crashed. It has not. And we will move on to playing club. But basically the goal of this video is identifying critical squares, meaning squares that either lock something in or second best have one side out facing so it has the chance to be safe, When we don't have that, we'll usually go for a weak corner we can recapture later. Now, here if we look at this hand, we look at our top card, it wants to go down. We look at our second card, down right. Our third card, right. Our fourth card, right. Our fifth card, up with a slight preference for right. Which means we know we want to go right rather than left, and we have a slight preference for down rather than up. Therefore, I'd like to use a card that is weak and easy to recapture and directs the game so the rest of my hand is happy. And the card that jumps out at me for this, because it is the weakest corner available, is 1, 7, 1, 2, and 9. I think, especially on these lower level games where you're less likely to have cards that fit nicely together, a weak corner strategy is a very valuable thing to start doing and start developing. So we're trying to play simply. We're trying to play, stuff that plays in the standard squares without having to do much calculation. So what's the standard square here? The standard square is 6, locking in 9. If we play in 6, what do we have to check for our one move calculation? We have to check if they can combo us from 5. We have 4 different ways to capture in 6, but we can come up with some preference ordering. I would rather use up a card that has less power for later. So for instance, I notice 3622 is my only capture in 7. I'd like to keep that. I notice 2172 is my only capture in 5. I'd like to keep that. So my instinct is, what about we use 3452, which also feels like my best card, so maybe I'd like to keep that. So I'd really like to use probably 6322. So the question is, can they combo 6322 if I put it in 6? That has a 3 gap. It is a 2 facing out versus a 5. Do they have anything 3 higher to the right than down? No. But they can plus wall it from 3, which is something we have to be worried about the higher number card we play. So if we can't do that, okay, what about 3452? Can we put 3452 in 6? That is a 2 facing to the left. We already checked 5 for a 2 facing to the left, and there's no way they can combo that. So even though I'd kind of like to hold on to this card, and if I was playing seriously, there's a very good chance I would try to find some other card to put there. Probably 2172. I think for our purposes, for our kind of quick skim of moves, this is an efficient and reasonable way to play. And we should feel happy. We've locked in the first card, and we're ready to attack a second card. We're ready to attack that card in 8 if they should let us. They go in 5. What are our critical squares? Well, everyone watching this will know 1 is a critical square because the Q is a good formation. But for our purposes, it's 3 and 7. It's the squares we have potential lock-ins. Let's check 7 first. 3622 is our only capture in 7. Can they combo it? They would need 2 numbers that are the same facing down and right. They have it. Shucks. Okay, that one's out. What about 2172 in 3, sorry. That's our only capture there. Can they combo that? Well, they would need either a 2 to the right and a 4 down, which they don't have, or something 2 higher to the right than it is down, which they don't have. They do not have this, so we're going to play this move. And there may be better moves here, but this is going to be our straightforward, low calculation way of playing is simply, we have the capture, let's do it. Now, it does seem like this game's probably headed for a tie. Okay, so our only captures are with 3622. We want to make sure that's not comboed, but we also want to make sure our 6322 is happy moving forward. Our 6322 would rather face up. So, we want to play 3622 in 1 unless it is comboed. Sadly, it is comboed. Okay? Backup choice. 3622 in 5. But then we don't have the recapture in 1. We probably need the recapture in 1. Alright? What about 3622 in 7? Well, this actually loses, which is a bummer. With 3 moves left, we probably should just calculate out to the end. I don't think it's too unfair to do so. So, one thing you may notice is we kind of want 3622 to go high and 6322 to go low on the board. So it's worth checking if we're like 3622 in 1 is my desired move, so that 6322 can go in 7. What if I start with 6322 in 7? And this, if we check for a moment, is how we will get our tie. So we didn't beat club here. And we're not going to win every game. We're going to move on to the next one, but it is worth noting our strategy has gone one win and only a tie versus club. We were unable to punish his capturing style. If any combos had gone our way, we probably would have won this game. But we're also not playing in a way without calculation. It's going to be really hard to set up future combos. And so it is also the case that without calculating, not that many combos are going to go our way. All right, we move on to bot club queen. So we have a win and a tie so far. Not the most auspicious start, but you know, things will get trickier and we'll see if it holds up. So queen's going to start in 5 because queen always starts in 5. This is known. All right, it did crash. Everything's crashing. I should make sure the other bots haven't crashed if anyone else is playing them. Because they probably have if anyone else is, because it's crashed almost every time against me. But I think I'm the only person online. It is midday on a Monday. Alright, so they go in 5. Now, one thing we want to do, in general, is check for safety. They have 6s in 3 directions, but they only have a 5 facing down. Okay, we can't do too much about that. But our 2-6-3-6 has 6s facing left and right. That could potentially be really hard for them to take. Sadly, their 5-6-4-2 means they can plus wall it, and this is not that big a deal. In general, I don't have like a great heuristic I want to give for how to deal with corner or center starters like this. But I would say it would be nice if we could play something that is tricky for them to take and possible for us to take. So the move I'm drawn to is 3-6-4-4 and 1. I notice we have 2 recaptures with 2-6-3-6 and with 1-4-4-7, and they have no capture from 2. So if they don't play in 2, if they don't come near it, we can go in 4 next, and they don't have a good move in 2, and I think that creates a little discomfort for them. So this is just the first move I looked at because it was our top card that had a high number facing out that gave them some difficulties, but it seems to actually give them some difficulties, so I like the look of it. I'm by no means claiming this is the best move. Now that we look a little further, it's really nice that if we recapture with 2-6-3-6 and 2, that's also safe. So potentially we can create some problems for them. All right, they captured. What's our critical squares? Well, 2 can lock in 1, and 7 can lock in 4. However, we don't have a capture in 7, and we do have a capture in 2, so we're certainly going to be predisposed to go in 2. We have 3 different cards that can capture from 2. 1-4-4-7. The 1-4-4-7, you'll notice plus walls 5, in a way that's kind of scary for combo potential later. 4-6-3-4 also pluses 5, again, in a way that could potentially be scary for combos later. Now, we're not really checking if it actually is scary, it might not be at all, but flipping that card so early, when it's a card we're going to have a fairly easy time taking later if we want to, seems like it's asking for trouble. So I'm going to play in such a way that we do not flip the extra card, and that we have this 6 out, which is safe. So I was choosing between 2-6-3-6 and 4-6-3-4, and you could argue either way here, but if you're not going to calculate, it is safer to do the move that doesn't flip 5. If you are going to calculate, obviously you can get away with doing either, but as is, this feels safer. Okay, what squares lock something in? 3 or 8, so we will only consider 3 or 8. If we were to go in 3, it would be great if we could be safe. We can't be. If we were to go in 8, it would be great if we could be safe, but we should be pretty happy just capturing, because 3 locking in 2 is good, but 2 is already safe. 8 locking in 7 gets us something new in the position. We're going to go for that. Now, I think we're quite lucky here to actually be that they can't play 6-3, 1-6, and 9 because we have a combo in 6, but we just happened to walk into that. We did not get there through any kind of setups or plans. Some combos will still go our way even if we are not calculating. They go 5-6-4-2, and we, of course, can play in either square, but at this point we should be going, okay, if we go in 3, they capture us and tie. If we go in 6, they don't capture us, and we win. So let's take the win. Um, and we win our third game, beating Queen, and we will now move on to Diamond, who is a significantly more complex player, and will pose us, I think, more interesting problems that this critical square strategy may or may not be equipped to deal with. I am curious. I think it is hard to face Diamond with limited calculation, but we're going to try it. All right, we got second turn. I notice quickly as I look at our hand that we have potentially a left weakness. That's a bit annoying, but we'll try to deal with it. And we'll see how they want to start this game. Diamond is very likely to start with a low corner, by the way. Diamond likes their low corners. And from our perspective, I should make sure it hasn't crashed. It probably has, given everything else crashing. Oh, Quirky's playing deuce, and it didn't crash. Okay, looks like Diamond did not crash, but it is frozen. Why is it not? Ah, there it goes. Okay. It should have moved. And let's make sure it did. Okay, 3, 6, 7, 4. Now, this is a card we can already take both ways. And my general heuristic is going to be check if we have captures. If we don't, try to set up captures. If we do, we have freedom to go kind of wherever we want. So the first thing we're going to check is just, do we have safety? Is one of our big corners, our 7-6 corners, safe? And we can quickly see they're not. 6-7-2-3 is covered by their 7 down, and 1-6-7-5 is covered by their 7 to the left. But the other thing about moves like this is we really don't have to do much. So let's figure out which part of the board do we want to play on. Let's treat it like we're playing a starter. I want to go right. Looking at our hand, it's very clear. I want to go right. Now, if we go in 6, we give them a free lock-in in 8. So if we want to direct the game to the right, the only square we can do so that doesn't give them a free lock-in is 3. So I'm going to stick something in 3. I'm going to look at my hand. I'm going to say, what's my weakest card? I think it's probably 3-6-5-5. That just seems like the clumsiest card. It doesn't have a 7. It's a little lower numbers. It could also be 6-5-4-4. I don't really care much between these two. Your mileage may vary. I'm going to use 3-6-5-5, and I'm going to put it in 3, directing the game how I think my hand wants it directed. And I'm going to see what they do, because when I see a weak corner, it does not force me into something. So I can choose to play what I want. Sometimes that's going to be playing a big, strong corner, and sometimes that's going to be directing the game how we want to direct it, which is what we're going to do now. Okay. So we have a 3-corner setup. These are always complicated, but there are some useful tools. And I think one of the big ones is just, what do we think of as critical squares? Well, the first principle of a critical square is, can we lock something in? We cannot here, right? There's no card that is partially surrounded. The second question, though, is, can we play safely? And that's much easier to do if a square only faces one open square, especially if that square is 5, because there's no walls something can bounce off. So do we have something that can go in 6 or 8 that has a high number facing out that would be safe? Well, anything in 8 with a 6 or 7 facing out is safe. I like capturing stuff, so let's just go with 7, 5, 2, 5, and 8, which we can see is safe, gives us some lead, and is just a nice, safe way to play. Can they do their own safety and response in 6? Well, 4-6-1-7 doesn't flip 9. And 5-3-6-6, we do set up a plus against. And I did notice that, but I think we could pick 7-5-2-5 in 8, whether or not we notice the plus, but it's nice that it happened to give it to us. All right, so the first thing we should check is, did this set up a combo for them in 5? It did not. Phew. We're good. All right, so 8 is still safe. So where do we want to go? What's desirable for us? Well, we'd really like to go in 6 to lock in 9. That's the only card we can lock in, and that's a card they are threatening to take. So we should probably do something there. Which card should we do? Well, I'm really tempted to start calculating here because I think this is a position we can get some value out of calculating. But I think that is against our rules, sadly. But we should not put something here that gives them a combo in 5. So incidentally, the move I would probably make in a game is 6, 7, 2, 3, and 6. Now, none of the cards we can play are safe in 6, so it doesn't matter that much, and all of them are capturable by both their cards. It doesn't matter that much whether we have a high number facing out or a low number facing out. So, in fact, the 3 facing left doesn't seem so much worse than the others. And if we think about what cards we want for the rest of the game, we definitely want 1, 6, 7, 5. It's our only card that can attack 4 from 1. And 6, 5, 4, 4 has more down power. Unlike 6, 7, 2, 3, it does attack 5 from 4. I think 6, 7, 3, 2 is actually 2, 3 is actually the card we want out of our hand. I think despite in general being more powerful, it doesn't face the game well here, and we can actually get to it without doing any calculation. Now, the reason I actually wanted to make this move is I noticed if they go in 5 now, we can combo them whichever card they put in 5. Specifically that 6, 5, 4, 4 has both of their cards covered. However, we could get to this move without noticing that, and we probably should. All right? They go in 2, and now we can look. If 4, 6, 1, 7 is their final card, that is good at taking to the right, but it can't take anything down. So if we just flip something below it, we're going to win this game. Yeah, I don't know how good a job I'm doing of keeping it kind of simple, but I think the general principle of like, here are the key squares. What cards can we put there that aren't comboed, which is, as I said, really the only thing we're checking for in our calculations. And what squares can we put there that leave us with good cards for the rest of the game is going to be a pretty decent strategy. So we now have 3 wins and a tie. Now, deuce is taken because Forky is playing, and Forky likes playing deuce. But actually, if we wait a moment, that game will finish, because deuce is the next opponent. So let's reload. Oh, it's running slow. They're going to get there first. But we'll see if we can get it. If we can't, we will go on to Joker and Spade. Deuce is just fun. Now, this is reloading too slow. Let's take Joker. Oh, this is running really slowly. Sorry that this died here. Maybe a halt running some of the box. Okay, let's see if we can get deuce. Let's halt jack. I'm currently in a game, so I must have clicked something. What did I click? We did click. Oh, no, we got deuce. Okay, I'm going to make sure everything's running okay. And then by that time, they'll have made a move, and we can figure out what we want to do in reply. Okay, seems like Calamity did not strike. And let's make sure Joker, deuce hasn't crashed. All right, deuce has played a starter. What is it? 7, 6, 6, 3. Can we attack that from 8? Yeah, we definitely can. Can we attack that from 6? Yeah, we can as well. We have 7, 1, 4, 7. So once again, this gives us some freedom. It gives us some freedom to say, do we have any safety of our own? Do we have a big corner like a 7, 6, 3, 5 or a 7, 7, 2, 2? And the answer is, nah, not really. They're both covered by 6, 4, 4, 7. So then the next question I think we've been asking is, what directions do we want to face? 7, 6, 3, 5 wants to go up. 7, 1, 4, 7 wants to go up left. 6, 3, 7, 3 wants to go up or down. 7, 2, 6, 5 wants to go up or down but left. And 7, 7, 2, 2 wants to go up and right. So our hand is really excited to go up. And I think that's probably where we should be looking, is something on the top of the screen. Ideally, that gives them a problem. And I notice they only have 6s facing up. So I'm not going to think too much about this. I'm just going to put something with a 6 facing down over on the left part of the screen and say, this didn't give up any captures on their starter. It wasn't 7, 1, 4, 7 or 7, 7, 2, 2 or 7, 6, 3, 5 cards that seemed useful attackers. And we're just going to redirect the game. Now, they played in 5, and they set up to cover it. But now there are 4 different squares with only one side out facing, which gives us some potential for safety. Now, their 6, 7, 3, 4 controls a lot. It actually means we have no safety in 4, and we have no safety in 8. So our only potential safeties are in 2 or in 6. I notice they're a little weak going to the left, so I am tempted to go in 2 with 7, 6, 3, 5. I don't think it's the most amazing move ever played, but I think it's a move that fits our kind of what are the squares to check? Squares with one side out facing. Do we have a move there that does something? Yes, we do. Note that we also should consider 6, 3, 7, 3, and 6 because that is safe as well. So that's certainly worth considering. I'm just going to go for the move in 2. I don't have strong feelings here, and we're going to play simply. And if I look at it very long, I'm just going to start calculating. And we're trying really hard to actually just not calculate. So if I make the move quickly, I know I won't calculate, and we can go from there. And we're trying to do very minimal calculation. Okay, they blocked 6. That did not create a threat in 3. So our critical squares are 3, certainly, always, 8, and 4. 3 is most desirable. Now, if we do flip in 3, note something happens. We must combo 6, either 6, 3, 7, 3 or 7, 7, 2, 2. And that will flip 5, and that gets really dangerous for combos back. And if you check any further, you'll notice 6, 7, 3, 4 has both 4 and 8. We're dead there. So we cannot flip if we go in 3. So we could go in 3, but we wouldn't be allowed to flip anything. We'd have to play 7, 1, 4, 7 there, which we're fine with. That's actually not a very good card moving forward. But we should check a little bit in other squares. So candidate move number 1 is 7, 1, 4, 7, and 3. We could also play in 4. If we play in 4, they can take anything we put there, so it doesn't matter too much. But say we put 6, 3, 7, 3 there. Now, we don't want to calculate too much further, but I would note our card in 2 is safe. If they attack our card in 4, we probably have a good move in 8. So that seems fine as well. Seems like we could go in 3, we could go in 4. What about 8? Well, if we went with 7, 7, 2, 2, or really any of our cards, it's going to force the flipping of 5, and the flipping of 5 is pretty scary. So I think the question is, do we want to go in 4 and lock in 1? Or 3 and not really lock in 2 because we already have 2, like they can't take 2, but 3 and lock in 3, or 4 and lock in 1. Now, I don't have a great heuristic to offer here that'll be like, here's the way to decide between these 2 moves or anything like that, but I'm going to go in 4 today. I may have done some calculation I shouldn't have been allowed to justify this move. I apologize if you think this was better than I should have allowed. But I guess the thing that drew me to this move was if I go in 1, 3, and 3, they get to go in 4 and they can do some good stuff in 4. If I go in 4, they go in 3 and they really don't do anything in 3. So I think this was the better way to go. See, so they haven't done anything in 3. And now we have a double capture locking in 2 cards. And I guess they were ties either way. It didn't really matter. But this way felt a little more comfortable to me. All right, so we tied deuce and we tied club. We have 3 wins and 2 ties and 2 games left to go. Perfectly reasonable game there. I think this is a reasonable way to play triple triad. Obviously, calculation is good and helpful. But if you do not want to calculate, I think you can be, or just have difficulty calculating, I think you can play at a pretty good open level without doing so. Obviously, the greats will sneaky snake you, but I think this is plausible. Okay, side starter. My first question, because immediately there's nothing we can lock in, but there are two squares that are potentially safe. So the first thing I would look at is, do we have safety in 3 or 9? Now, this was a really clever aggressive side starter from Joker, which is to say they noticed we have very little left power. And many people would go on the left, but Joker goes on the right, saying, you can't take safety next to this card. You don't have a way to take advantage of this. And they're right. So let's return to our general principles of which directions do our cards want to go. Our 8345 wants to go up and is otherwise a trash card that everyone hates and is terrible. Our 7842 wants to go upright. Our 6583 wants to go down but also right. Our 3685 wants to go down right. And our 7673 wants to go right. So we want the game in general to be going to the right. But it's hard for us to play on the right because if we play in 3 or 9, they can happily lock it in. And this is where I think we have to be crafty. And I don't know that I can get to this move all that well from general principles without doing any calculation. So I'm going to make a move that I think is a little unfair for what we've been doing. It might not even be a very good move. But one thing I notice is it is hard for them to recapture 6 from 3. So I like the idea of flipping 6. If we do so, I want to flip it from 9. I want the game to be going to the right. So even though this gives them a lock-in, and even though I've done some calculation to justify against it, we really, looking at this hand, we really want the game to go right. And they don't really want to recapture that card in 6. So this achieves a few goals and is in a critical square I look at, right? The first squares I'm looking at are 3 and 9 because they are the two squares with one side facing out, which means it's easier for them to be safe. But this move obviously is a big concession. They get a lock-in, but it is in the first square we look, and it has two clear benefits. Flipping 6 is good for us, and the rest of our hand is really happy to see the game go to the right, and really doesn't want to see the game go to the left. So I really wanted to make something on the right work, and I did cheat and do some calculation. I noticed that if they play 8, 7, 4, 2, and 8, we have 7, 8, 4, 2, and 7, and both 7 and 8 are safe for us. And if they play 4, 7, 7, 5, and 8, that we have a combo in 5, which recaptures 8 and 9. So I cheated a bit. That second one, they have a combo back. It's a little complicated, but I did a little cheating, and I apologize. Okay, they have gone in 3. So our key squares are 2, 5, and 8, the squares that have a potential to lock something in. We can eliminate 2 because we have no capture on 3, so we're interested in 5 and 8. Personally, stylistically, I much prefer in general to go in 8 than 5 for a bunch of reasons. The main one, though, is usually combo chains start in 9, right? 9 is strong to 6. Sorry, yeah. So I prefer to go in 8 to 5 because I prefer to lock in 9 to 6. That seems just a little more beneficial to me. However, your mileage may vary, but also if we start checking what cards could go in 5, I noticed that 7842 with the 4 facing down is comboed from 8. I noticed that 6583 with the 8 facing down is comboed from 8. First one was with 8742 to flip the combo the 4. The 8 facing down is comboed by 4775. And if we go 7673, that gives them a same in 8. And if we go 3685, that's another 8 facing down. So in fact, anything we put in 5 can be comboed from 8. And we do not want that. But also note, 5 is just more likely to be comboable because it interacts with both 2 and 8, while 8 only really interacts with 5. So let's stick something in 8. What do we want to put in 8? Not something that can be comboed. So 3658 is plus walled by 8742, and that flips the extra card. So I would rather play 7842, 7673, or 6583. I notice 6583 gives them some pluses in 5. Let's not give them that. Why would we give them that? We should also be looking to play something that we can take back. So one thing I like about 7842 and 8 is it gives us a same in 5. This seems to me the easiest card for us to recapture. So I'm going to play this one. This was a harder decision and has been a trickier game than prior games because our opponent is better than in prior games. Joker is a very good player, as I think people are well aware. But I think we have a pretty promising position, admittedly, because I went a little unfairly good, I think, with the move in 9. All right, they go in 2, they lock in 3. This makes sense, right? This is a principled move from our perspective. They also set up a plus in 5. They have many threats to go in 5. Where's our critical square? Well, our only critical square is 5. It's the only one. Now, we're going to have very weak numbers facing left, so they may easily have chances to sweep us in this endgame. But I think we have to go in 5 looking to lock in 6. We got to do something in a way that doesn't get comboed, but none of our numbers facing out will get comboed. I would try to, in general, keep somewhat unique values in the hand. So, for instance, 6583 has a 6 facing up that the rest of the hand doesn't really offer. So maybe that's a card worth keeping in the hand. Your mileage may vary. The cards facing out here are going to be so weak, we have very little winning chances. We are not going to win this game. But we may be able to hold a tie. I think we should be able to do that if we do this right, but we're not going to spend too much time calculating. We're going to say, I need to go 5. Which card should I use? Which cards feel good to hold on to? Well, my 6583 and my 3685 can maybe punish some of their 7s in a way that my 7673 can't. Like, they have plus wall potential. So I'm just going to keep the ones that maybe have a little more play and use the one that doesn't. And we're going to block 5 because that is our critical square. And I think we're gonna get a tie this game. Let's see what they do. They go 4, 7, 7, 5, and 9. That doesn't seem like a tie. So which square are we more likely to play in, 1 or 4? Well, we're definitely more likely to play in 4 because that can lock in both 5 and 7, while 1 can only lock in 2. Can we go in 4 while being safe? Yeah, we can. So actually, Joker really screwed up this endgame because we just got to win. Again, feel free to, or not again, but feel free to yell at me in the comments if you think I did an unfair amount of calculation this video. But I'm trying to make it based on kind of the following principles of our top priority is go somewhere that locks in cards. Our second priority is go in squares with 1 out facing. And the third thing we really look for is what directionally makes the rest of our hand happy. What makes it more likely we'll have good cards for the rest of the game and not have dead cards that are useless. And then finally, our final question is kind of results from that one of what makes other cards happy. Oftentimes it's playing a weak corner, but we generally do that in the interest of making the rest of our hand happy. Okay, it looks like Spade's game has been taken by a player named Toby, who I'm not familiar with. A lot of players are playing. So we're going to, I guess, wait on Spade. New user with a nice win rate. All right, so we're going to wait on Spade and see what happens. It looks like Spade is going to lose this one. Obviously, you can't see that. Not very important. Hopefully that game ends soon. And then we will play a game versus Spade. And again, this will be our final challenge for trying to play without calculation, trying to play at a fairly high level. How well can we do without real calculation? And the answer so far is we have 3 wins and 2 ties, 4 wins and 2 ties. We beat Jack, we tied Club, we beat Queen, we beat Diamond, we beat Joker, we tied Deuce. Sounds like 4 wins, 2 ties. All right, Spade's game is about to end whenever his opponent makes their final move. Oh, I crashed Spade, my bad. running. Nope, it just immediately crashed again. Wanna run? Let's take down some of the others. Sorry for this. Take down club. Ah, it's running again. Okay. Let's hopefully grab it this time. This feels like when someone's putting up private games and someone's taking them that shouldn't be, trying to make sure you're the first to grab it before someone else does, just making sure we get it. Okay. Directionally, what does our hand want to do? And also, do we have safety, right? If we have a big corner, we may as well check for safety. Is our 8-8 corner safe? It is. Is our 4-6-8-7 corner safe? It is not. They have 2-5-8-8. Well, if we have a safe corner, we may as well play it, right? Again, we're not checking too many moves ahead, so we're not seeing if they have a setup in 5. An easy way to play better than I am is if you check if they have a setup in 5. Because if they do, this can be a really bad way to play. Now, it's somewhat mitigated by the fact that we already have recaptures in both 6 and 8. But that wasn't why I made this move. I made this move because it was safe and because that is our kind of general practice. All right, diamond is crashed. One sec while I make sure everything's running vaguely properly. And then we'll get back to our move. Okay. So they should have moved by now. They have. All right. So what are the squares that make sense in these opposite corners? Because we haven't had these opposite corners yet. One is we can play next to our starter because they can't take from the other side, and we can start playing to get safety. But the big thing that jumps out at me is the card they just played, we can take from 2, but we can't take from 4. And that's just not right. I want to be able to take from both squares. So my strong instinct here is to first check 7. Can we go in 7 in a way that sets us up to have 4? And we cannot. 8-6-7-3 would need a 7 facing up. We don't have it. 2-7-5-8 would need a 5. We don't have it. 4-6-8-7 would need a 4. We don't have it. 6-5-8-5 would need a 6. We don't have that either. Can we set up in 5? 8-6-7-3 would need a 6. 2-7-5-8 would need a 3. 4-6-8-7 would need a 6. And 6-5-8-5 would need a 9. We don't have that either. So we cannot attack this directly. And we cannot set up to attack it directly. And if we do attack it, they have a very nice recapture in 6-7-8-4. So I think what we're going to do instead is just play something close to our starter. Which card do we least want in our hand? Well, 4-6-8-7 has a nice capture in 2. 2-7-5-8 has a much worse capture in 2. 8-6-7-3 is our only card with much up power. 6-5-8-5, we have something else for down power. So I would think we should get rid of 2-7-5-8 or 6-5-8-5. Well, the next thing is, can we recapture them? And 2-7-5-8, we will not have a way to recapture that 8 if it's facing out and gets taken. But 6-5-8-5, we should not have too many problems recapturing. So let's use 6-5-8-5. Now, where should we put it? 6 or 8? No idea. In general, more subtly, I would put it in the square that doesn't give them safety in the square next to it. So if we go in 6, do they have safety in 3? No, 4-6-8-7 covers it. If we go in 8, do they have safety in 7? No, they don't have high numbers facing out. There's a slightly more complicated reason to choose between them. I'm going to choose 8 for the slightly more complicated reason, but your mileage may vary. And I think hopefully that was a reasonable running through of what we're like plausibly looking for there. And we'll see where we end up. All right, they have gone in 2. So our standard candidate squares are 3 and 7. No, that's sort of a lie. 3, 7, 4, and 6 all appeal, and if we know anything, we also know 5 is a real square. 6 locks in a card, 4 locks in a card. We don't have a card for 4 that captures, so we can rule out 4. We could go 6. Can we go in 3 in a way that's safe? Yes. 4, 6, 8, 7, and 3 is safe. So we should strongly consider that. Can we go in 7 in a way that's safe? No. 8, 6, 7, 3, and 7 is not safe. So our candidate moves are 4, 6, 8, 7, and 3, or something in 6. Now 4, 6, 8, 7, and 3 seems really good because our card in 9 is already safe. So if we can get a new safe card on the board, I like that more than just locking in an already safe card. So we're going to play 4, 6, 8, 7, and 3, and we know they can't take it, and that's all we're checking because we are not trying to be super complex. Also, thank you to Dalamar for getting it such that 4, 6, 8, 7 shows both elements rather than only showing one element per side that shows. I think this is much more comfortable to play with and means you don't actually have to remember stuff you can't visually see, which I've never liked. All right, they took safety. What's our critical square? Well, it's definitely 5, right? We really would rather go 5 than anywhere else because 5 can lock in 2 for sure, and it locks in 6 if we can take 6. Now, sadly, we cannot take 6, but it still locks in 2. 4 could lock in 1, but we have no capturing 4. 7 can't lock in anything. We want to go in 5. Can we go in 5 safely? No. Does that mean we don't want to go in 5? No, we still want to go in the critical square, right? We still lock in 2. But we should now pick which card goes in 5, and we should pick the card that goes in 5 that leaves us with the best card left over. Now, the squares left over will be 4 and 7. That's an up-down connection. 2, 7, 5, 8 is terrible up-down. 8, 6, 7, 3 is great up-down. Yes, of course, I've calculated this out, and you probably have too. But we can get here without having calculated it out. We did not need to do it. I'm sure I'm somewhat biased by just automatically calculating a little further than I'm saying. But this does get us a win. And so with 5 wins and 2 ties against the 7 box, we got there with... I really tried to do very little calculation and just based on these kind of useful, standard, but not always applied principles. And as shown by the run that I will not be putting out as a video, this doesn't always go so well. I believe I lost a club and then just rage quit. But you don't always... You can be a good open triple triad player without doing significant calculation if you have a feel for what squares to play. And having a feel for what squares to play in, it's just not that hard to identify which the critical squares are. And I'm not saying you can't play way, way better than I have today, because you certainly can. And calculation is a humongous advantage. If Joker could calculate properly, it would have never lost that endgame. Unless I'm being a moron and it was lost the whole way, but I really don't think it was. There's a lot that calculation can bring, both early, mid, and late game. But this played pretty well. Like, this was a pretty good result. If you look at when we had a who can beat the box the most tournament, you know, Turds and Selder definitely scored better than we did just now. But this would have been a pretty good score in that field. I think you played through twice against each bot, but we just went 5 wins, 2 ties. That's a very good result. I'm sure we got lucky here. Like, I'm sure it can't do that sustainably. Again, I did lose to club in my first attempt to record this, though with a truly horrendous hand that lined up just so badly in every way. But, yeah, I wanted to sort of make a pitch for good fundamentals are really valuable, and that we don't... Calculation helps a ton, but you can get fairly far without it. You can do real things in open and beat good players and beat them convincingly, mostly on just having really solid fundamentals. And just, here are the squares I check first, here's the priority, and really making sure to have good cards left over. Because that's something I think that isn't reliably done that was really useful in these games, is we tended not to have dead cards for the endgame. I think we basically never did. And we didn't because our main tiebreaker on everything was how to keep useful cards. And so to once again say, our principle was kind of identify critical squares. Top priority of a critical square is a lock-in. Second priority is something with one side out facing. But we often went to our second priority if we didn't have a good lock-in, or if our lock-in was on a card that was already safe, and our second priority moves could do other beneficial things. Like here, playing 4, 6, 8, 7, and 3 was safe, and flip 2, and 9 was already safe. We didn't feel the need to lock it in. Stuff like that. So we sort of have these two types of moves we're checking seriously. And then beyond that, once we've identified which squares we want to play in, we're really looking to keep cards that will be useful later and keep cards that are directionally apt. And the directional thing also leads us to kind of our next principle, but it really follows off the directional stuff, which is if we don't really know what to do, if they play like a weak corner or something vague where we don't have an automatic reply, we don't have a way to play a critical square, we talk to our hand, we ask our hand, hey, what direction do you want to face? And we try to figure out a way to face that direction. So our critical squares become squares in the direction we want to face. So for instance, we saw a weak corner in 9 against diamond, and I went, I really want to go to the right. And the only square on the right side of the board that didn't give them a lock-in was 3. 6 was also on the right, but 6 gives them a way to lock in a card. So how can we play in a way that doesn't give them free critical squares, but does direct the game how we want to direct it? And that was basically it. This was basically critical squares plus directionality, and then the implications of directionality leading us to some weak corners, or just chucking, not necessarily a weak corner, but just a card we didn't really need in our hand or didn't want, in a side of the board that we wanted to play on. And so, yeah, I think critical squares and directionality is a really good core to fundamentals, and I wanted to make a video about it, and I thought playing against the bots would be a fun way to do so, and so that's what we did. Hope you enjoyed it.